Amazon will never be big in the Philippines, and I'll tell you why. It's not because of island logistics. My name is Stephen Pope. I'm the founder of My Amazon Guy, and I was shopping on Amazon today to try and purchase some electronics like a power cord for my cell phone. And I go through this process, and I get to the checkout, and lo and behold, I have a total of $181 in goods. Cool. That's what I would pay if I was in the United States. Shipping, $28. Well, I'm in the Philippines. All right, no problem. That's not too bad. But then I get down to this line right here. Import fees deposit. And in a very gross, egregious, I cannot believe what I'm looking at here, $216 in import fees. The value of the items is exceeded by the import fees tax in the Philippines. There is no way that Amazon will ever succeed in the Philippines with a system that produces this outcome that we're looking at right here. And when I try to understand the fees and structurally figure a way around it, I go into AI and I start to look at this. And there's all kinds of complications. The de minimis rule, and the threshold of 10,000 pesos. There's value-added tax. There's customs duties. And when you try and understand this, it gets very complicated very quickly. So for example, if you try and do a calculation example right here, you have to determine the CIF value, the item cost plus shipping plus insurance, calculate customs duty, the CIF value times duty rate, and calculate VAT, which is 12%, CIF value plus customs duty for a total tax due. And during the checkout with Amazon Global Shipments, they'll run an estimate and cover it up front, and then they reimburse it on the back end if it ends up being less. Now, I got to tell you, I do prefer this versus me getting a shipment at my door and having to pay something for them to release the shipment to me. So props on that particular element, but this is pretty complicated. So a lot of times people are splitting their shipments up, but then there's certain items that have higher taxes like electronics. So if you look here, most consumers have between a 3 and a 30% rate, which is a very large difference, by the way. But with the electronics I was looking at today, it was hitting 100%, which is ridiculous. So we're going to look at one of these Anchor Nano Charger 100 watt, which by the way, these things are awesome, not sponsored, but I just really like fast charging ports. So I add this to my cart. I'll first point out that I bought these last year for $30 and now they've raised the price to $45, but now they've added back a $10 coupon, which is weird, probably related to US tariffs. So I'm going to pay US tariffs to get it into the US, and then I'm going to pay Philippine tariffs to get it back over here to the Philippines, which makes perfect sense. Why I'm not just shopping on Temu and directly porting it from China over to the Philippines is another question for another video. All right, so if we go into the order system here, what I found out is if you hit a threshold, they'll start adding these taxes. So if I have 3 of these in my cart for 124 USD, I could get no import taxes apparently. But the second that I hit this dollar threshold of 4 of these items, I'm now getting charged $72. Earlier when I was shopping and I had added about $190 to my cart, I was hitting a $200 customs import fee. So it seems to scale the more stuff you add to your cart. So now I could just place a second order with multiple units and somehow bypass all of this together. So a system like this doesn't actually solve very many things, right? Obviously an expensive luxury item is going to get taxed. Whoa, we can tax the rich. But think about the middle class trying to get out of poverty and they need to pick up, a $500 phone or maybe a Pixel. Maybe they're paying $600 or $700 and they have to pay twice the value of that. Or take a car like a Yukon, which would go for like $93,000 in the United States. They'd have to pay $200,000 to get that to the Philippines. So this really limits the ability for the country to level up, right? And some of you might be thinking, oh, that's great. The rich are finally paying their fair share of taxes, but this really taxes anybody trying to level up their life in general. And some of you might say, well, nobody can ever afford some of these things. Well, shouldn't you have the freedom to choose that, right? Because now you're getting priced out. Now you really can't, and now really the only super elite rich can actually afford these things, right? So it basically keeps poor people poor. So I don't know, I'm structurally against this kind of system. It's definitely anti-free trade. There's no question about that. I think both sides of the aisle kind of aligns on that concept. But I'm quite frankly not, I'm curious why Donald Trump hasn't put more heavy tariffs on the Philippines, right? They have a 19% recently announced with the Philippines deal. But you can see the Philippines in that one screenshot I showed you. I'll put it back up on the screen again. They were taxing more than 100% of the value of the goods here. And it's possible maybe Amazon had an error here, maybe it's all wrong, and all of these things are, we could speculate and whatnot. But I'm just flabbergasted by the system that is in place today. And I'm surprised Trump hasn't put like a 50% or a 75% tariff, which he has done on India, 50% just in the last day alone. So, these are the sort of things and the reasons why Donald Trump's trying to go out and create free trade. But it's also a systemic reason why the Philippines is going to struggle to get out of, third world territory where they have a lot of problems where it might be, political corruption, roads and infrastructure issues, or just simple phone and Wi-Fi access across the country and across the hundreds of islands that the Philippines has. I mean, those are giant problems all by themselves. But when you prevent this innovation, when you prevent this items coming into the country, not only are you going to create like a black market, where now people are going to buy off-market goods, they're going to seek to go direct to China and bypass U.S.-made brands, and it's going to stifle innovation. So, for example, on the Cebu Island, which is where I'm at right now, very difficult to find some basic necessities outside of like some core brands, right? So you can find Colgate toothpaste literally anywhere in any shop ever. But if you tried to find Crest toothpaste on the Cebu Island, I actually could not locate it. And I went a lot of locations trying to get my Crest toothpaste. I ran out of the one bottle I brought, and I was trying to redo the same brand of toothpaste that I'd used for 20 years, right? I'm like one of those guys, and I really didn't want to convert over to Colgate. I had to order from Manila to get any Crest toothpaste over on the Cebu Island. So there's a lot of innovation problems. So think about that structurally. Like, what would drive Crest to launch its toothpaste over on the Cebu Island, where 6-7 million people live? Well, if they have to deal with that, and they got to deal with customs and duties and then excise taxes. And obviously this might be a poor example for excise tax because it's a cheap commodity item, but still the point still stands. There's difficulties when you create barriers like this. And so I think Amazon is going to really struggle penetrating a market like this, let alone the fact that you have to somehow get to 1,000 islands in the Philippines. Like that, honestly, is probably the easiest thing for Amazon to solve from a logistics standpoint, even if they don't have an FBA warehouse over here. I think it was like 5 years ago, Amazon ended up shutting down some of its call centers over in the Philippines, which I thought was weird because I think the Philippines call centers are superior to India. Plus, quite frankly, Filipinos are more American than most Americans. I don't know if anybody who hasn't met Filipinos before, the average Filipino can karaoke like 100 songs. How many Americans can do that? I don't know. They know our American literature better than us. They know the movies better than us. And so if you have a call center over in the Philippines, you're going to get better customer service than, say, India, where the accents are super thick and hard to understand, whereas the Philippines English is a base language. They only teach English in schools and business. And they're a service-based country, so they actually like giving service, whereas not every country can make some of those claims. I would say the Philippines might make contention for top #1 service-based country in the world, quite frankly, especially for Americans. So there's just a lot of, as I've been in the Philippines here for about a month, trying to adjust and understand the culture, and there's so many great things in the Philippines. Like I love mangosteen, the fresh fruit's great, But I got to tell you, there's two things I miss more than anything else. Number one, obviously, my 5 kids back in the States while I'm over here in the Philippines. And number two, I'm really struggling to not live with 1 to 2 day Amazon shipping. It's just very, very difficult. That shipment that we had up on screen over there, this shipment, if ordered today on August 9th, would get to me on August 26th. That is a long time to wait for a charging cord for my cell phone. Very, very long time. Runner-up for things I miss in the Philippines would be probably USDA beef. The beef quality over here is trash. Even the Filipinos will say this. I'm not trashing on the country. They'll be the first ones to admit it. That's why they love lechon so much, because the pork is really good here, but the beef is garbage. Very tough, chewy, probably the way they raise the cattle, probably the breed of cattle different over here. And it's very difficult to import beef, which is kind of another thing that we're talking about on reasons why the country's going to struggle to innovate and bring in outside things that would help level up the country and won't take away from anything here. But if you have a tax on beef or ban it or prevent it, this is the sort of thing that Donald Trump is trying to solve across the world right now with all of his tariff deals. And he's very misunderstood by a lot of talking heads online. So I'm just curious to see how this develops. And he's even talked about removing the IRS and getting rid of income taxes, which would be fantastic. That was invented not even 100 years ago. And so, the country has existed longer than the income tax prior to that. But anyway, that's another long story rant. So this is just me observing that Amazon in the Philippines is going to be a struggle. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And I have over 400 Filipinos working for me on staff at MAG. 4 out of 5 of my employees are Filipinos. Descarte, I love you Filipinos. And if you need a job, myamazonguy.com/jobs. Have great things to say about Filipinos. All right, we'll see you guys later. Have a good one.